So for step 22, installing the RC equipment, well, we're going to need to grab E1, which is this plate that we're going to install the receiver and the ESC on. That's then going to be placed inside the chassis, and we're going to put on the on-off switch. That's going to be attached here. That might be different if this comes with a hobby wing. For me, obviously this model, specific model, was released before COVID, so it's definitely a Tamiya ESC. And of course here are the screws and hardware that we need for this, and we're also going to connect the motor cables as well. So I'll set this up and we'll put this all into the chassis. So first off, let's get everything installed onto this plate. And first off, I think we're going to put the speed controller on it. They've already cut out these two stickers that are, or the, what is it, the double-sided tape for the ESC and the receiver. So that is just going to sit right like that. So we'll first off take one side off of the tape. And I'm going to center this as much as possible on here. Let's go with that. And then we're going to peel off the other side. And based on what they're showing there, all the wires are facing the other side. So I'm going to put this as close to the edge, basically, that they have here as possible. So I'm going to try and center it a bit and then put it down. Perfect. So there we go. There is our speed controller in place. So now the next bit is the receiver. Now the only thing about this is, and I've shown this in other kits when I've done these build series, I don't see the point in having multiple radios for the same, you can only use one car at one time. So what I do is I use a Velcro setup, and I found these bits which are super cool. I don't have to cut anything out. They're already pre-cut. So I'm going to take that off, and based on how this is, actually I think I'm going to stick this onto here first because I want to see where I'm actually going to place this. And I think I'm going to place that right there. So I will just push that on. And then I can take that off. And now that is on solid. So now I'll just put that back on. And there we go. So there is our ESC and receiver onto the, what I'm going to call the electronics plate, because everything's there. But I just find that easier, because then if I want to use a different vehicle, I can just take the receiver out. It's pretty easy, and obviously unhook it, but that's it. It's as simple as that. So now that that's done, let's attach that plate to the chassis. So as you can see, there are 3 screws that are going to hold this plate onto the chassis. And the interesting thing about the plate is you can see that they're open holes, which means it's going to be even easier to put this on, because we're not just aligning it up, it's going to basically fit into place. So we're going to align those 2 at the back. There's 1 at the front. Make sure all of the cables from the motor and any wires are out of the way. And then we can put this down and we can start to screw this in. And I'm just going to put them in lightly for now. And same thing on the other side. And because of all like the suspension and everything, I'm going to actually start screwing this on sideways, because you've got a lot of bounce. It's not a lot of, basically, I can't put much firm pressure on this. So if we do this from the side, we'll start screwing this in. And I'm not doing them one on one. I'm just going around making sure that they're all going in easily enough, not binding on anything. And because this is going from hard plastic to hard plastic, you're gonna know when you've reached the end. So there we go, we're at the end. Same thing with this one. We're at the end. And we're at the end. So there is our electronics plate in place, and everything else is out of the way. Now, one interesting thing is you'll see that the way this goes, it's showing the wire going down, and I had originally thought, well, maybe it goes down beside here. Well, it doesn't work that way. So if you want it down there, what I've found is the easiest thing to do is slide this under the arm. And then once we attach it down there, we're going to be able to move this wire, and I can actually catch it on this other hole that you might use for a screw, screwing down the servo, and actually sliding it in there, and it kind of gets it out of the way. Here, there. We'll get it out of the way. There we go. So I'm going to figure out a way of just sort of making sure that stays out of the way, but as a whole, that'll work, and that way it'll still attach to this quite nicely. Now, because this has screws, there's a plate, we need to take that off at this point, because that is not needed. It's funny, really, because in most Tamiya kits, if it's a Tamiya speed controller, you never use this on-off plate. It always comes off. Because they usually have like a sticker that will have on-off, and there's usually a special way that it has to be attached to the chassis, so this isn't needed. So if we take that off, you can see that it still says on one side. But it's actually going to sit right there, which means that you can see that we're going to have these little screws that are going to go up and through a washer. And then we're going to take this on-off switch, put it back in place, and we're going to put that up through the hole and screw it into place. And same thing with the other one. Let's grab the washer and the screw. We'll stick that up there. Make sure that's going into the hole. There we go. And same thing. And there we go. So there is our on-off switch in place as well. So that's just got to be moved so that it's out of the way. And then of course now we've got to connect our motor wires. So for the motor wires on this particular speed controller, it's going to be yellow to yellow and green to blue. The orange cable would be if you're using a brushless system, And as we're not, I'm going to end up tucking this away somewhere and out of the way because we don't need it. I may just actually tape it down to the side or something like that. So let's get back to this. We want yellow to yellow. And green to blue. And then that one I'm going to tuck away and get rid of it. But that's how it's going to look. Now I will do a bit of motor, wire cleanup at some point just to see what way it's going to be best. But for the most part, that is done. So we have finished step 22. So now we're going to move on to step 23 and attach the bumper.